Today, we're talking about a financial big deal. Dave Ramsey, one of our neighbors and just a titan of industry and personal finance. We've been swerving into his 7 baby steps. Today, we're going to compare and contrast the 7 baby steps to the Money Guy financial order of operations.
It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
So one of the things we've tried to start doing is we've tried to start putting out on social media the topics that we're going to cover. Hey, be sure to join us live because this is what we're going to cover. And I was amazed to see some of the feedback. And this is what I think is going on. I think there are 2 camps of people out there, right? I think one camp is saying, yeah, you go after Dave and you go right all the wrongs. And then there's this other camp of people saying, whoa, 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 whoa.
Dave's my boy.
Dave's my homeboy. Don't come after Dave. And I think everybody is anxiously awaiting to see, wow, okay, what is the Money Guy take on Dave's 7 baby steps?
My goal at the end of the show is when I see Dave in the community, either he doesn't know who we are or he still likes us. So do you like that? I mean, because here's the truth. Who is Dave? Because here's another thing I thought was interesting. We have a fan out in California. I was hearing one of his relatives was talking because his relative's a fan of our show. And he was explaining that I'm very nice to that other guy who does what we do in the community. And I was so flattered. So I do have to be reminded that Dave is national, but sometimes people in other regions don't know Dave Ramsey like we do in the Southeast. So
who is Dave
Ramsey? Yeah. So Dave, here's some things. We pulled some stats. We pulled this right off of Ramsey Solutions website. Dave Ramsey has 5 million people have participated in the Financial Peace University. That's where these courses that usually through churches and other things where people go through and learn how to manage their money, especially tackling debt and things like that. More than 11 million books sold combined
11 million
for Ramsey
books.
Solutions. 14 million listeners to the Dave Ramsey Show each week.
Each week.
That's huge. You're like a hype man.
I know.
You're kind of repeating me as I'm saying it. Ramsey Solutions, and this is something new because if you drive down 65, which is the interstate right here in Franklin, Nashville area, they just opened Ramsey Solutions, has a brand new building right off of 65, 900 employees.
So needless to say, I mean, Dave has touched millions. Dave has touched millions of lives, whether it be through his coursework, the books that he's written or been responsible for writing, or even the enterprise that he runs. He has been impactful in the financial community. But
he is a lightning rod. There's a lot of people that don't like Dave. So I want to kind of bring in, what does Dave say? What are we, because financial, the baby steps is really, that's Dave 101. That's the first thing. If you go look at Dave's material, you have to know about those 7 steps if you're going to keep progressing through his system. But we've always done the Money Guy financial order of operations, and I think it's so powerful. I think they have a lot of intersections, but they do have some variances, so it'd be nice to kind of look and see where they are. But I do want to let the cat out of the bag. So here's my thoughts on where we fall with Dave.
Sure.
I think Dave is the type of person that there is no doubt that the average American is struggling with basic debt skills. I mean, if you want to know, there's a whole thing.
The statistics show it.
And we're going to get into the data in a minute, and it starts at college. Think about all the college kids that are signing up for credit cards for a bag of potato chips, and they're digging these holes for themselves. Dave really is that ladder out of the debt
dungeon.
I mean, it is a dungeon. It can definitely put you in chains if you don't know how to handle debt. So Dave has done significantly more good than any bad that some of his critics will put him at. I think that's why he is a Goliath in the industry. But I do think that there's everybody who kind of masters the basics of debt management and self-control and discipline, they will, after a while, they'll be like, okay, I get Dave. What's next, though? There's got to be something. There's got to be some additional facets. There's got to be, as you said in show prep, a mutation where now that I understand, because Dave is the type of person that's going to tell you where the rails are when you're Bambi in the woods, wandering in the woods. He's going to show you the bad things to avoid.
That's right.
But as you grow up and become a beast in the woods, or a financial mutant, you're going to start understanding how debt works. You're going to understand how investments work. You're going to understand real estate. And you're going to say, well, wait, I understand this, but what's next? And that's where I think that the Money Guy financial order of operations takes a lot of the things that Dave does great, but it also lets you know the additional facets or other areas you might want to explore.
That's, Dave says all the time that 80% of personal finance is behavior. So
No doubt.
a lot of what he's trying to do is mold and modify behavior, but there is some 20% that exists there that is beyond behavior. And I think a lot of that is what we speak to.
Sure.
And so even when we talk about our order of operations, it's kind of like you get the behavioral piece down, and then exactly what, like you said, what's next? What's the next iteration of that?
So let's kind of get into it. I mean, we've got some great slides. By the way, all of our data nerds out there, you're going to love that we put together these slides. Intern Daniel, by the way, is no longer an intern. We've offered him a full-time job. I think he's accepted. Has he officially accepted?
Yeah,
I mean,
he's
we haven't
accepted.
gotten signed paperwork. We have not determined how long we're going to keep him as intern Daniel.
He's going to be, 20 years from now, he's still going to be intern Daniel, 100%.
Poor Daniel. But let's jump in. Step one, baby step number one, you can see is save $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. Now, here's what I think is interesting about step number one with $1,000. $1,000, if you lost your job, that's not going to change anything.
Nope.
But it does. What's amazing about $1,000 is it helps you, because most people in America are paycheck to paycheck.
That's right.
And it at least lets you change that first positive step, that baby step. That's why I think it's brilliant the way he's named it. It is your first step towards conquering and understanding you got to start building good habits and stepping away from the bad habits.
That's exactly right. And I think what's so interesting is now everyone out there listening right now is someone that listens to a personal finance show or watches a personal finance show. So when they hear, oh, well, come up with $1,000, that's easy. I mean, surely everybody has that covered,
you would think,
right?
You would
surely
think.
everyone has that covered. Well, that's not really the case. And we've actually found that that's not what we see. If you look at it, 58% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings.
Every year, this stat gets updated, and it's usually somewhere between 57 to 58%, depending upon the year you're looking at. When I first saw that, I was like, this has to be bogus. Most people could come up with $1,000. But then it hit me. I mean, here we are. We live in Franklin, Tennessee, which is considered one of the wealthier communities in the United States. But every day on my drive into work, I pass a payday loan place.
Yep.
It's right there on Hillsborough Road,
That's
right as you
I know
pull
the
into
one you're
Main
talking
Street.
about.
And I was like, how can there be a payday loan place in one of the wealthiest communities in the country if there's not a whole group of people that get close to payday, don't have money for something, right, and have to go to one of these guys to get sharked out of money? So that's what the 58% don't have $1,000. These companies wouldn't be in existence unless there's a lot of people that are actually using their services.
Right. Now you said something in pre-show prep, Brian, that I thought was so beautiful. You said it's not actually about the $1,000.
Yeah.
It's not about the actual number 1,000. That's not the reason that Dave makes that his baby step number one. Right?
No, it's definitely about changing your behavior, and so you start getting some wins in the win column. So you're winning. So if you think about what's the money guy financial order of operations. We're also in agreement. It's that we've expanded it to where it's make sure your deductibles are covered.
Sure.
Because I think Dave puts you in a step of making sure you have $1,000 so you get that quick win, so that you're trying to get out of the behavior of living paycheck to paycheck. We kind of want to take it a step further so that if you got in a car accident, if you had a healthcare type emergency, all those deductibles would be covered. And our thought is that this is kind of the evolution is you're taking one step back from that. You're looking over, and you've got a cliff of despair that you could have a huge emergency if you don't get things figured out. So you get to take one step back from that cliff of financial catastrophic events.
So I think what we're saying is that in terms of like baby step number one, we're kind of in alignment, but rather than us saying just arbitrarily 1,000, we're saying, okay, pick a number. Understand, okay, I've got my health insurance deductible or my auto deductible or whatever. I have that, whether that's 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, whatever the number is.
It's still not enough to get you out of trouble if you lose your job. That's
right.
Coming up, but it at least lets you take, like I said, one more step back from the ledge of having something just horrible happen to you financially.
Yep, perfect.
Baby step number 2. Pay off all debt. I'm going to use the rabbit ears for all, except the house, using the debt snowball.
Now, I think, again, a lot of folks out there listening, a lot of the folks in different parts of the country, they might not know what the debt snowball is. And that's something that Davis, I don't think he invented it, but something he's certainly made famous.
Well,
right?
I think it's interesting because this is considered controversial in the fact that, because Dave is a little contrarian in the fact that he says, because most people, I think, when they think about it analytically, they would say line up all of your debts by interest rate that you're paying. Highest at the top to lowest at the bottom.
No matter the amount.
No matter the amount. Dave says, wait a minute. We need some wins because we're focusing on the behavior.
Right.
Remember, it's that whole 80%. It's the behavior over the academics. He says, line up your debts, smallest to biggest. And his thought process is as you start that snowball, think about what happens with a snowball. It starts off very small, but as it rolls, it gets bigger and bigger. He's hoping after you take a win on paying off that $1,000 debt or that $1,500 debt, you go get energized to keep that behavior and turn it into a habit. So once again, you're turning negative behaviors into positive habits that will help you moving forward.
And the picture of a snowball is by the time you get to the big stuff, but by the time you get to the large stuff, your snowballs gain some momentum. You actually have the staying power to be able to knock that out.
And I want to give some stats because I think Dave, this is why he's so successful, is that, and I'll go ahead and concede this. I tell when we have a prospect that come to us with spending issues, I'll say, you got to quit using the credit card. You got to start watching what you're spending. Like, yeah, okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I hear
of course,
you.
I got it, yeah.
Then they find out they take financial peace at their local church. They come in, Brian, I got to quit using these credit cards.
They're on fire for it. It's
and I'm like, we have been having meetings about this behavior, and yet you go and take one or two things from financial peace and you agree. So Dave gets it, that debt can definitely be quicksand that can pull you in. And here's some stats. We pulled this from USA Today. Listen to this. The average income in the United States, the household income, this is not per person, this is household, is $60,336.
Okay, so put that number in the back of your mind.
60 grand
average,
is income.
Average household, 60,000.
Average credit card for those that have it. Because I gave a stat, and I thought this was interesting because intern Daniel pulled this. I did a stat on one of our most recent calculation shows where the average credit card balance was around $6,000. Right. What I did not know, and he kind of corrected me on this, that was across the population. So there's a lot of people like me and you that do not carry credit card balances. So we're actually skewing that number down.
Right.
If you base this data off of those who have this type of debt, meaning they're not paying it off a month, average credit card debt is actually $16,883. So 17 grand right there. Almost 20% of a 60 grand salary. That's horrifying. Average auto loan for those that have auto debt, once again, because we want to look at people who are carrying debt, is $29,539. Almost 50% of the average American household income is covered by, auto debt. Average student loan debt for those that have student loan debt is $50,626. And then average mortgage for those that have mortgages is $182,000. It is no wonder that Dave is an advocate for debt is horrible because for the lion's share of the population, they can't get out of this thing. This thing is a prison for them and they can't figure out how to get out of it.
So getting out of debt is obviously something that would make sense and something you should do. So that's why Dave makes it number 2, get to 1,000 and pay off all debt.
So why? Because go ahead and pull it up because this is where the Money Guy financial order of operations does vary. I agree. Credit card debt is disastrous. The average credit card interest rate right now is 17.76. But as you guys can see, we're going to start having some differences from the baby steps. And the number 2 is we get that employer match.
That's
now,
right.
we thought long and hard. Hear me out on this, and we're going to have an illustration that shows our point. No doubt, credit card debt at 17.76 is a losing proposition. You have basically turned compounding interest on its ear where it's working against you.
Yeah.
But there is a caveat. Every one of you guys, especially my young listeners, hear me out on this. You get to go start working a job. It's very likely your employer will offer you a retirement plan, which the most popular funding mechanism is dollar for dollar up to 3% that you contribute. So if you put 3% into your retirement plan, your employer is going to put 3% on your behalf. That is 100% rate of return.
I mean, I can't think of other investments that lock in 100% right out of the get-go. Immediately, you're doubling your money.
And I want to take it a step further. Some of you that are worried, yes, but I need that money to pay down the debt. Do this for me. I want most young people, I think that you ought to do Roth choices. You got to do a Roth 401k if you're in a low tax bracket so that money grows completely tax-free. However, if you're one of these people that says, I need every dollar, if you take a tax deduction through a traditional 401k funding where you're lowering your income, you'll actually have it will offset because the government's going to fund probably 20 to 30% of your contribution through tax savings. it doesn't hurt you that full 3%.
Yeah.
So I'm just telling you, there's added benefits plus the 100% rate of return. It's pretty powerful. So, but we wanted to create an illustration so you can kind of see how this all works for you.
Yeah, we want you to see how powerful it is. Because again, 17.76% credit card interest is scary and it's terrifying and it's bad and it's punitive, but it pales in comparison to 100% rate of return when you think about an employer match.
It's free money, really
so
is.
You said you want to do a case study, right? So we said, how big of a deal is an employer match? So let's just do an example. Let's say that you make $50,000 per year, and just like you said, you get a 3% match from your employer. So you put in 3%, your employer puts in 3%. So you and your employer each contribute $125 a month. And let's just say that your pay doesn't change, your savings doesn't change, and you do that for the next 30 years. You earn 8% on average for the next 30 years, putting in just 3% of your salary.
That's because some of y'all said my 20-year-old's making 10, my 30-year-old's making 9, and my 40-year-old's making 8. It was too hot, so we decided to simplify it for this one illustration.
We'll cool it on down.
8% for everybody.
So what you'll notice is that after 30 years of you contributing 3%, you will have put in $45,000. That's how much you've put in. Well, immediately, because your employer is doing a dollar-for-dollar match on your contributions, your employer has also put in $45,000. So out of the gate, you've doubled your money. You have doubled your money. But this is what I'm doing with my Billy Mays. But wait, there's more.
There's more.
This is where it gets really exciting. If you were to actually invest that money for 30 years and earn 8%,
look at that.
$282,000.
That's the power of your army of dollar bills right there.
That's just the interest. If you look at the total account value, the $45,000 that you put in has turned into $373,000.
One of the things I thought was interesting, so you're really only out of pocket the $1,500 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So $1,500 times 30 years is the $45,000. It's worth $372. Do the math on that, and you'll see that you've only contributed 12%.
Mm-hmm.
The other 88%, which I don't make that up because I always talk about 88 times over for my 20-year-old investors. Here's 88% of the growth is coming from your employer plus the growth of the assets. Pretty powerful stuff.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
So so now we know that you need to be doing first order of operations is after you get the basics covered. Instead of paying off the credit card, I want you to get the free money from your employer.
Right.
But what's the next step? I'm willing to go ahead and concede it is just like Dave, where it's number 3. It's step number 3 for our order of operations is pay off credit cards and high interest debt.
Yep.
Now I want to talk about credit cards first because I know this is something that a lot of you guys, that we don't forbid credit cards completely.
Right.
But I want to take this is a binary decision. And I think this is something that a lot of our Dave Ramsey fans that also drink from the fountain of the Money Guy show, you pick on us because we even have friends that have done. Steve Stewart, he picks on us all the time about credit cards. I think that you guys know if you ever have credit card debt that you can't pay off, meaning credit cards are for rewards and benefits. It's not for borrowing money. So if you are carrying a balance, that's no-go land. You need to change your behavior 100%. Right there. Credit card debt should never exist. Mm-hmm. It's a fantasy. It's not something that you ever, and that's why there's a great slide that Bo and I we want to put a visual in your head so that you never run into this problem with your personal life.
I don't know that I'd say we wanted to put this visual in your
So
head.
here's what I want you to know. Credit card debt should be like unicorns and dragons. It's something you should definitely read about, hear about, but it's something you never actually see for yourself because you're not going to experience this.
That's right. You just don't have, it's not even in your vocabulary to carry credit card debt. It is fictional. It is not real. It does not exist.
And by the way, that is Bo looking like a dragon.
A pretty dashing dragon, I might say.
And then that is me dressed up as Jon Snow, but actually looking more like Howard Stern dressed up like Jon Snow. So it's always a classic. The team told me they were thinking about putting a unicorn,
a little horn
on me.
That would have been
but
awesome.
It is, I'm just telling you that all of you guys out there in podcast world, go out to YouTube and you might be surprised at some of the data you get to see on the visual side of things.
Okay,
now,
so that's credit card debt, but you added something onto yours, Brian. You said pay off all credit card debt and other high interest debt, right?
Because we've done some shows where we talk about, because we know debt doesn't come in just the form of credit card debt and that's it. There's also student loans. There's also auto loans. and there's your mortgage debt, which we'll get to later. But how do you figure out when to pay down the student loans and the auto loans? So we actually created an illustration on that. We covered this in a recent show on when you should invest versus pay down debt. It seemed crazy not to cover this. We built a lot of this, especially with student loan debts, because I know there's a vast difference between a student loan that's at 3% versus a student loan that's at 6.8%, which is where federal loans are right now. So we were like, we've got to give some people some tools here. So what we came up with is that recognize there's this thing called equity risk premium. It's a concept where you're taking a risk and you're expecting a reward for taking that additional risk by investing in the financial markets. So it's typically somewhere between 3.5% to 5.5%. Historically, we chose a conservative 4%. So you just can take 4% off of the ages that we expect. So for 20-year-olds, it's 10%. So it's 6%. You can see 6% for 20 to 29-year-olds. 5% for 30 to 39-year-olds, and then 4% for 40 to 49-year-olds.
So that's I'm going to paraphrase exactly what you said. If you're in your 20s and your interest rate is above 6%, you should probably prioritize paying off that student loan debt. If you're in your 30s and it's over 5%, you should probably prioritize. If you're in your 40s and it's over 4%, you should probably prioritize. If your student loan interest rates are lower than that, your army of dollar bills might be better deployed to doing something different.
No doubt. So I mean, I know it's contrarian to what Dave talks about, but get that free money from your employer and then start attacking that debt.
Love it.
Car loans, by the way, we put this on there, 23.8. We want you putting down 20% if you can't pay 100. Obviously, the ideal thing is to pay 100% cash for your cars. But if you can't, because I understand sometimes you need dependable transportation, so you have to work with some financing, 20% down, 3 years or less. So that way you're not buying too much and faking your lifestyle, and it should be no more than 8% of your income. If you have 2 cars in your household, it's still 8% of your income.
Total income. That's exactly right.
So pay attention to that with the car loans.
Love it.
Baby step number 3.
Dave says that in baby step number 3, you should save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund.
This is what I thought. Remember going back to that research where we showed 58% of Americans don't have $1,000. Yep. So we pulled a stat. I thought this was kind of interesting. I mean, we'll go ahead and show you the money guy, what our thoughts is, because it's not much variation from what Dave. We think you need to determine how big of an emergency reserve you need.
That's right.
I'll tell you, guidance we've always given is 3 to 6 months, very similar to Dave's. The only thing that we kind of vary on is that we try to give you a little more guidance on how do you determine if you're 3 months versus 6 months. It really depends on how long you think it would take to replace your job.
That's exactly right.
So if you're a person you have a lot of people relying on you, you're in a very specialized career, it might need to be 6 months. Now, if you're a person that's retiring in the next 2 to 3 years, your cash reserves might be substantially bigger than 3 to 6 months. It actually might be 18 months to 36 months. So you're getting close to 3 years of cash reserves. So if you have any type of hiccups while you're making that transition from saver to consumer, you're going to be in good shape.
You also need to factor in what kind of income household are you? Are you a dual income household? Is there a big disparity in the earning spouses? Depending on what the answer to that is, might have you lean towards 3 months or towards 6 months. But we think your emergency fund should be specialized to your specific situation.
No doubt. But look at this slide on just cash reserves habits.
Did you find this terrifying just a little bit?
Well, at first, here's the thing. When I first, because we didn't see it in this beautiful, intern Daniel put it in this pie chart. We just saw the raw data, and I have the raw data here, and I was like, that doesn't add up to 58%. There's no way this works. But I was like, whoa, wait a minute. It does work, because just follow this. 28% have no savings. Those are people highly susceptible to payday loans,
paycheck to paycheck. Yep.
Then 25% have less than 3 months. Well, less than 3 months, that could be $1. That could be $50. It could be definitely less than $1,000. So I've already added 28 to the 25. We're at 53. I'm like, that still doesn't equal 58% like the sir. Well, then you see that sliver of there's 12% that has. I don't know.
I don't get that.
That means they don't have anything. Can we just agree to that?
Yep,
I mean, if you say I don't know, it's either you're rude that you don't want to answer the survey or you're not interested, or You just don't have the money and you don't want to admit it.
But have you ever seen someone who was embarrassed about admitting, oh yeah, I've got a rainy day fund, and it's 3 to 6 months? I'm like, no one's ever embarrassed to share that kind of information.
So, and then we'll close out the graph. 18% had 6 months, and then obviously 17% were somewhere between that 3 to 5 months.
So, I think we and Dave would both align. If it should be somewhere between 3 to 6 months, or if you're retired, it should be even more. There's really only, 35, does that do my math right? 35% of folks actually fall in there.
Yeah.
That should be improved upon. And if you're listening to the show, you should improve upon that.
And remember, everything that you need, that you're thinking about, if you have an upcoming purchase in the next 3 to 5 years for new cars, family vacations, a business investment, that stuff's going to go on top of the 3 to 6 months that you need. So cash reserves should not be something that's at play, that's that's subject to market fluctuations and market risks. That's something you need to be locking it down.
Now, Brian, I'm so excited. If you're out there listening on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, we actually live stream these on YouTube, on Facebook, and we have a live chat going. I got to say, Brian, the people in the chat, we're not getting beaten up so far. So it sounds like
we haven't upset the Ramsey family yet.
The Ramseyites just yet.
That's great.
Think we have.
Baby step 4. Let's see if we can blow it up on this one. Baby step 4. Dave's step on baby step number 4 is invest 15% of your household income in retirement.
Okay.
I think that's great. I will tell you, I have an asterisk to put at the end of that. Is that I think it's a great start.
That's right.
Because what I would suggest, what I like about this is that I think everybody, and Fidelity actually had some research on this. If you are starting to save in your 20s, 15% might be enough, because there's some research out there by Fidelity's that if you start saving in your 20s, Fidelity Investments recommends saving about 15% of your income for retirement.
So right there, if you're in baby step number 4 and you're in your 20s, spot on.
You might be okay. I mean, but if you're in your 30s, a lot of you, you kind of enjoyed your 20s. Maybe you were in school in your 20s. Life was happening, so you start getting to the point that you can start saving in your 30s. Fidelity's recommending you might need to be saving 18% of your income. And then if you're one of these people that starts after 35, Fidelity is recommending, now this shows you how valuable compounding interest is. They're recommending you need to put away at least 23%. Right. So you see how quickly this changed. It's easy to say 15% is enough for young savers, but it quickly elevates. Our goal and our guidance is we love people to save. Let's kind of work through it, because we have an order of operation. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. The first one is very similar to Dave's. We're going to put a percentage on here in a minute. It's contribute to your Roth IRAs and HSAs. That's
right. So Dave just gives the guidance, hey, save 15% of your household income. We think it's dependent upon where you are, whether you should be 15% or 20%, or what we even like to see is 25%. And then once you take it there, then you actually have to start talking about the real order of operations in terms of where do you save? And step 1, we think Roth or HSA.
And we're going to give you an illustration in a second on why Roth IRA. And remember, with Roth IRAs, you don't get a tax deduction for your contribution, but you do get tax-free growth. Now, why do we put HSAs on the same kind of line as Roth?
Yeah, because Dave said retirement. HSAs, Brian, when I hear
that's
that, I'm thinking healthcare.
Health savings accounts is what that acronym of HSA stands for. HSAs are spectacular because they're what's called triple tax advantage. There's very few things. If we had
a hype button here, we would hype that up.
Whoa, 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 because there's not many things that you can get triple tax advantage. Because Hoff walking by should have said, giving us a hype action there. Because triple tax advantage, you get it first. Number 1, you get a tax deduction when you make the contribution.
No matter your income.
You get tax deferred growth on the money while it's sitting in the account waiting.
It's not like an FSA where you have to use it or lose it.
And then if you use it for health care on qualified medical expenses, it is tax-free distributions. Right. But guess what? So that's 3. That's the triple tax advantage. But there's a 4th thing that puts this on the same level as Roth IRAs. Once you're age 65 or older, you can actually use these contributions for other expenses outside of healthcare to supplement your retirement. Now, they will be taxed like ordinary, IRA distributions or 401k distributions, but still, it's great that these things are closet retirement accounts with the triple tax advantage. So number 5, very powerful stuff.
So step 1, contribute to your Roth and then your HSAs. And then we think in this same vein, the next step, will be max out your employer-sponsored retirement plan.
Yeah, you want to. This is one of those things where, remember, with your employer plans, a lot of you have 401ks, 403bs. You can contribute $19,000 a year. If you're 50 or older, you can add $6,000 catch-up contribution to that. Now, I do always like to warn people, when you put money into these retirement plans, they do have, if you're under 59 and a half, you're going to be restricted. So don't put money that you can't just walk away from.
Right.
This truly does need to be retirement money, just like what Dave is referencing with the 15%. And if you have if you're a person that has maybe access to a 457 plus either a 403b or a 401 type plan, you have the opportunity to turbocharge your investments. I'm looking at my medical professionals that work at hospitals, because you can actually double dip and actually fund both of these retirement plans. Huge opportunity right there. And that leads to number 7, because you probably, to do both retirement plans, you'd be in that number 7, which is hyperaccumulation. Right. Now, you heard me say earlier, 20-year-olds, according to Fidelity, can save 15%. But as soon as you get into your 30s and 35, that number quickly approaches 20 to 25%. We think that is where, because Millionaire Next Door has a formula where they talk about saving strategies, and they talk about hyper accumulators. And I've always liked that term of hyper accumulators. So I think if you need to be saving, the only thing I would put an asterisk next to what Dave has, instead of investing 15% of your household income to retirement, I wish it was 20 to 25%, because I'm a hyper accumulator. So
again, I think Dave's baby step number 4, we love it. We agree with it. Save 15. We think it's a good starting point. We think you should aim for 15 to 25. And then we even think that you should follow a hierarchy where you go Roth HSAs, max out retirement plans, and then hyper accumulate.
But let's put an exclamation on this. Can you walk them through why we think the Roth IRA or Roth 401k is so powerful?
We get this all the time. So we said, okay, well, let's just put some math to it. And so we get asked all the time, why is it so valuable to consider doing a Roth? So let's assume that you have 3 individuals. You have a 40-year-old, a 30-year-old, and a 20-year-old, and all of them decide that they want to max out their Roth contribution this year, right? And they're starting from 0 this year. They're going to put $6,000, that's the maximum you can put in at that age right now, into a Roth, and each of them are going to retire at 65. So we're going to assume that the 40-year-old is 25 years away, 30-year-old, 20-year-old, right? Here's what we think is absolutely incredible. The 40-year-old, if he earns 8% rate of return, that one Roth contribution, that one $6,000 turns into 44. Phenomenal. If you're out there
7 times over,
if
pretty
you're
powerful
a 40-year-old
stuff.
out there hearing that, you should get pretty excited.
Your money potentially has a potential to grow 7-fold.
So then, 30-year-old. Now, we think younger folks can get higher rates of return because they can go further down the risk scale. So a 30-year-old, we said they can earn 9% rate of return. Well, in the 35 years that their Roth is going to be working, that $6,000 turns into $138,000.
Think about that. Now it went from, for a 40-year-old as a 7-fold growth. Now it's a 23 time. So just that 10 years gave you a 3-fold increase over just the 40-year-old. And this one blows your mind.
Now let's talk about the 20-year-old. That 20-year-old that decided I'm going to go max out my Roth and put $6,000 in it. By the time that person gets to retirement, age 65, that one single contribution is worth over $530,000.
That is the power of 88 times over. We talk about that concept all the time. And look, this is why, and we get a little flack from it, but I am so passionate about all of my listeners that are in their 20s and 30s. I want you got to get the credit cards paid off, because that's realize you're paying 14, 15, 16, 17% interest rate on that. That's working against you. But you are going to come into sometimes the decision of, should I be paying off this low interest loan, or should I even be paying off my mortgage early? We'll be talking about that in a second. And Dave doesn't even suggest that. He wants you saving 15. I'm just saying that while you're young, in your 20s and 30s, go get that compounding growth, because your army of dollar bills with that foundational investments while you're younger is going to be the meatiest portion of your army of dollar bills working for you, so you can work less in the future. Dave has a saying, live like no one else so you can live like no one else. I know he's talking about in terms of debt and other things, but I think he's also talking about letting your money work for you. Think about 20 and 30-year-olds. I mean, it's disgusting. I'm in my mid-40s. Look at 20-year-old, the same $6,000. There's no difference in money out of pocket.
That's right.
$530,000 versus $44,000. It's night and day.
And here's what I think is the most exciting about this illustration. If you take that 20-year-old and you think about that $530,000, if this person would have just done a regular 401k contribution or like put this into a traditional IRA, when they go to retire and pull that $530,000, they have to start paying tax on it.
Exactly.
When you look at doing that inside of the Roth IRA structure, the Roth 401k structure, all $524,000 of earnings, of growth, of interest, or whatever you want to call it, completely tax-free. It is unbelievable. It is so, so exciting.
So let's talk about, because I don't think we're going to get in a lot of trouble for this one. Baby step number 5.
Yep.
Save for your children's college fund.
Yep.
We love those kids.
We love them, and we want what's best for them. We want them to have a better life than we have.
The only problem with kids in college is that it's gotten expensive.
That's a fact.
It's definitely gotten expensive. So
I just heard some amens come
from it definitely is. I mean, and that's
our recent college graduates.
We'll talk about some of the tools that you can do to fund it, but I think it's important. What's the money guy take if you look at the financial order of operations?
We say you should save for college early and often, but
there's the but.
Money guy's got a big but. Ensure you have enough for retirement.
And it always gives me, you and I have been on enough conferences. We probably should be flying separate so we don't blow this enterprise up with one bad plane accident. But it is one of those things when we fly on a plane together, you know, you and I joke about the fact that they always, if you're traveling with a child, you're the child that I travel with, they always want to come over and say, make sure that you put the mask on your face before you help this large child that's sitting next to you. That's the first thing they kind of come over and just make you confirm. Yep. It's the same thing. I would tell this to any parent out there. Realize, and we'll go over the tools, but if you're not saving for your own retirement, you're leaving behind a horrible legacy for your kids, because you're probably going to, by force or by request or by guilt, asked to live in their basement. Right. It'd be much better if you prepared for your own retirement, go through the baby steps, go through the financial order of operations, so that you live with your kids because it's a choice, because this is good for the family, because you're financially independent. Right. So make sure you're funding those things, because there's student loans that are ripoff in a lot of aspects, but there's no retirement loan.
That's right.
So take that, heed that advice, and know that you really got to think about it. Now let's talk about tools that can help you with college savings.
That's exactly where I was going to go. You know, one of the absolute best ways that you can save for higher education, and we've done tons of shows. Go out to the website, moneyguide.com, search college. You'll find tons of information. But we think that a state-sponsored 529 plan is a fantastic way. And
they're getting better.
In a lot of states, there's even a tax incentive to do so. You get a state tax deduction for doing that. 529s are a wonderful way. You put money in, you potentially get a tax deduction depending on the state you live in. That money grows tax deferred, and then similar to a Roth, similar to an HSA, if you use it for qualified higher education expenses, that money comes out tax free. It is so exciting.
And they just expanded it. Part of the new tax legislation was now K through 12 is also covered by the 529 plans. Right. And as Bo said, I think it's worth repeating, a lot of your states out there will help you fund this by giving you a state tax deduction for funding. Tell that to the grandparents too, because a lot of times, I know in Georgia, the state we came from, grandparents can fund their grandkids' 529s and still take a tax deduction. Powerful stuff.
Now, one brief aside, and I'm thinking about this right now. My kids are nowhere near college. I've got
one that's
you've
getting
got
close.
One near college. And you and I've had this conversation, and I've had, she's kind of shared with you some of the things she wants to do vocationally, and you've been steering her down this track. And one thing that we tell clients and we tell friends is that, yeah, it's so awesome to save for college and to have this big, fat, nice 529 plan built up. But there's a chance that you will do much better work and much better, more useful work for your child if you educate them on the ROI on the degree that they're going to get. What's the return on investment on that? And what's the appropriate level of student loan debt or whatever that may be to do? Because I'm seeing all the comments blowing up saying, oh, you don't need college degrees anymore. You can go to trade schools, or you can do vocational education. We agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I will definitely. The student loan crisis, at the end of the day, we have a big problem right now is that, because we did a show recently where we showed when I went to University of Georgia, it was $3,000 a year. That doesn't sound like a ripoff. When you go, I mean, I can't even remember what the price, because I don't have the numbers, but we figured out it was 7% per year inflation since intern Daniel graduated from UGA.
That's right.
I mean, it was a big step up in price. And I don't know that my education is any different, or his is fourfold more valuable than what mine is. It's just these institutions are pushing up the cost. And I think a lot of it has to do with student loan debt.
exactly
The
right.
student loan debt has enabled, since the institutions have priced, they know that they have buyers because it's reached into the fabric of society, that education is good for all and you're investing in yourself. They've kind of taken advantage of the system, and we've now got students coming out with 6 figures of student loan debt that they're going to just bear on their shoulder for years and decades. That stuff is so scary, guys. So Bo is exactly right. If you are going to do any type of education, know what the return on investment, meaning what is this job, what's the prospects for the job, what are you going to get paid coming out, and then make a decision that you're not going to get yourself in trouble. We always tell people, if you are going to do student loans, you better make sure you keep that balance less than what the first year salary is. You do not want to go to a private school, major in basket weaving, and then come out with $120,000 of debt.
Because basket weaving doesn't pay that good.
Basket weaving pays probably a living wage. So you're not going to ever be able to get out of student loan debt. So be very aware, and that guidance alone is just as powerful as 529 funding, because guess what? You can use 529s for trade schools.
So the comments have been blowing up. They've been saying, hey, guys, don't forget, you can use them for trade schools.
No, you can use 529s. We've sent them to beautician schools. We've sent them to trade schools for people who want to be welders, heating and air repair. I've even used it. I got into a financial pinch a few years ago. My daughter goes to a special school. Last year, I got to use some of that 529 money for her special private school, K through 12. So lots of power there. Just understand what you're working with.
If you're curious about what's covered, they're fantastic websites. I think even savingforcollege.com has a tool on there where you can go and look and see, okay, is the institution covered? Does it pay for out of the country, study abroad, whatever the thing may be? Go look that up. Use the websites, use the resources available to check into that.
Let's talk about baby step number 6.
Okay,
this is a big one.
Here we go. Number 6.
Pay off that home early.
Okay.
Now, this is something I was talking to a group recently, and I have learned, like I said, I know we fish out of the same water, that we have Dave Ramsey listeners and we have Money Guy listeners, and we all because we're all great financial. If you're consuming financial content, you're trying to improve yourself and make it better. But I am realizing that there is a group of people that consider themselves Dave Ramsey fans that I don't think they've read the book.
I would agree with that.
Because they have enjoyed the baby steps of paying off debt and the credit cards so much that after they paid off all their consumer debt, where Dave then has them coming and doing 15% for retirement savings, then he has them saving for college, then we get to baby step 6 of paying off the mortgage. Some people skip 4, 5, and get right to 6.
No, I think that is such an important point for us to stop and just say again. What we are saying is that we agree with Dave's baby steps and the order that he's laid them out. A lot of folks who follow them get them out of order.
Yeah, I think there's people who get so excited. Like I said, they get the snowball rolling, they're paying off all the credit card debt, and it feels so good that then they roll right into that mortgage debt. It goes, let's just go completely debt-free.
That's right.
And I get it. Look, I will tell you, I'm in my mid-40s. I will be debt-free probably by the time I'm 52 completely. The only debt I have right now is my mortgage debt. And financially, I know I have a 3.5% mortgage. I should analytically never pay that mortgage off because I think I'll do better with investments. There's always going to probably be a spread in the long term between the 3.5 versus what I could earn. However, a person in my late 40s and having a huge asset of investment assets I built up in my 20s and 30s, I kind of get the best of both worlds now. Right. I've already built up my army of dollar bills. Now I'm thinking about other things like, hey, let's just be completely out of debt because to take that risk of that debt and having to pay that off the table. The problem I have is my 20 and 30-year-olds. You guys are so worried about getting out of debt. And I hear people saying you're not taking into account risk. This is something, hear me out on this, guys. When you talk about risk with the financial markets, we're talking about investment risk. But paying your house early also has a risk. It's what I would call liquidity risk. Because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of things that will happen in your 20s, your 30s. You're going to have children. You're going to buy your first house. You're going to get married. All these things are big life events that are going to occur. Well, guess what? There's going to be emergencies, like you might lose your job. There's going to be healthcare costs and other things. If you were throwing all your money into paying off your house first, if you hit that hiccup of life, where do you get the money? Because there's only one way you get money out of a home that you prepay early. You have to either go borrow against it, go take a home equity loan. That's it. I mean, or sell it. You have to sell it. You have to sell it.
And let's talk about, and what's really interesting is in years like 2008, when things are when things are scary,
things happen in groups.
You might not be able to sell your house. You might not even be able to access that home equity.
You're probably going to lose your job and your house is going to lose value at the same time. I'm just going to tell you, because I've seen it happen. The 2008s, why do people lay off employees? If you're a good employee, you face a reduction in force is probably more likely, and that's going to happen in a downturn. So you're going to have everything happen at once. You need access to liquidity.
Absolutely.
So let's show what the Money Guy Financial. So we have prepaid debt too.
Yep, we're right there with it.
We're right there with it. The big thing is just making sure you understand the why you're doing this and not jeopardizing the power of compounding interest. If you're in your 20s and 30s, please get this order of operations right, because you need to build those foundational investment assets. So then down the road, when you get to be my age, because remember, Dave talks about this, Chris Hogan talks about this, they've done the research. The average millionaire pays off their house within 10.2 years. I see that stat, and I know there's probably some 25-year-olds that read the book, and they say, I'm going to pay my house off in 10 years.
I got to be done.
The only thing that I think is missing, and I would love if I got the chance to talk to Chris or talk to Dave about that, I would love to know, I think when you see that stat, they pay it off in 10.2 years, it doesn't mean it's their first or maybe even second house. Right. It means that, like, this is my third house. I will have this house paid off in probably 8 to 9 years because of exactly what I said. I've already got my army of dollar bills built up, a big portfolio over here. Now I'm thinking about just finishing things off, and I just want the peace of mind, the psychological benefit of being completely debt-free, but I didn't skip some of those other steps. So when I see the 10.2, I think it's not necessarily the starter home. I think it might be the second or third home. And now these 40-year-olds are realizing they want to be debt-free by the time they're in their 50s.
Yeah, and if you don't believe us, we actually did this show a couple weeks ago, and Reeves or Morph, I don't know if we can put a link somewhere to go to that one. We actually ran through 2 mathematical scenarios of someone who pays off early to invest more sooner, and just a boring guy who just pays it off on a normal scale. If you are young, early on in your accumulation years, the numbers don't lie.
Yep.
They don't lie. It's just something where, so go look at that video, watch that video. That's the reason, and I think Dave even understands that. I think that's why he puts his save 15% before he talks about prepaying the debt, paying off the home.
Well, because it goes back to that Roth IRA study, because I know we're going to break this into highlights, so some people might not get to see that one. Remember, a Roth IRA contribution of $6,000 for a 20-year-old versus a 30-year-old, they're both putting in $6,000, so there's zero difference in contribution. However, the 20-year-old at retirement will likely have $391,000 more money in retirement. Do a withdrawal rate on that.
Only
if you
because
do
it started
5%, that could be $20,000 a year for the rest of your life.
I just pulled out my calculator. You did that. I
just rounded it up. I did 5% withdrawal rate. That could be $20,000 a year for the rest of your life, just because you started saving when you were 20 versus when you were 30.
Yep, I think that's perfect.
Let's jump into the last one, because this is a powerful one.
This is a big one. Yep. So baby step number 7 of Dave's, he says, build wealth and give. Because I think his saying, and I hear him say, we always quote, live like no one else so you can live like no one else.
Yeah.
When I've actually met him and heard him say it, he always says, live like no one else so you can live and give like no one else.
I am cutting off probably the most important part, and this is one of those things, because if you go back and watch some of our early episodes on the financial order of operations, I'm a little embarrassed we did not talking about giving enough. Right. And it's crazy, because we've done shows on happiness, and one of the things about money and happiness that we discovered is that the more generous, the more you give, the happier it really does lead to more fulfillment and happiness. So we are designed to be generous people.
I agree.
So it is one of those things where, so go ahead and pull up our what we say. We say continue to build wealth, continue to give to others, because we don't think that this is a wait until the end on the building wealth. We think every one of these steps is powerful. Paying off your credit cards is going to help you build wealth.
100%.
And I think Dave would probably agree with most of that. And the other thing, it came up when we were doing show note prep, because we were like, well, in give, is this where Dave is putting the tithe? This is where, and I think Dave would probably tell you, because we've met Dave before, I think he would tell you the tithe is probably coming in
It's
early.
early on.
It's very
Really
early.
on.
But I do think he means give, because he's even got books on this of generational giving and things. He's talking about truly be way overboard on
That's
the
right.
generosity, because there is something about paying it
something
forward
tied to
and
happiness.
sharing
That's exactly right.
and sharing that. And it's so much better to give than to receive. We hear that adage. I'm just telling you that there's a lot of introspection with that I think you ought to take advantage of.
What I think is so wonderful is we talk about all the time, Brian, that money is ultimately a tool. It's a tool to allow us to do the things that we want to do, when we want to do, the way we want to do. What I love about giving and being generous and being able to use that tool for others, to help others, to be involved with others, is it reminds you of what the wealth can do.
Yeah.
I have no visions of being Scrooge McDuck doing, my backpedaling my vault full of dollar bills.
It's freedom and flexibility to live life like you
That's
want
exactly
to and
right.
do things. So I wanted to close this thing down, because a lot of people, you've just heard us do the 7 baby steps, but we've got the 10 Money Guy financial order of operations, and you're like, okay, so they're similar, really similar, but there's variances, so I need to know how to kind of reconcile where the differences lie. So I really thought long and hard about this, is that if you're a person watching this, congratulations, first of all, that you are consuming financial content.
beautiful step in the right
Because here's
direction.
the thing, I know either one of these, whether you're talking about 7 baby steps or the 10 Money Guy financial order of operations, both of these steps going through this process is going to create a plan of action. And just by the sheer fact that you are planning and taking steps toward making your life better financially is a big step towards financial success and building something. So now you're saying, well, these things vary. So where does the road converge and differ? And this is where I want you as an individual, you need to understand, we are all different. Now, Dave is dealing with the same problem I have, is that we are creating content that we want to hit as many people as possible.
Broadly applicable.
But it's hard to do that with finances, because we're all different. You might have a struggle that's completely different than the struggle I have. We see this with substances. We see this with behaviors. If you're a person that you're all in on things, I mean, you go overboard to the point that also sometimes it can be detrimental.
It can be very bad,
If you know that you have a personality that can kind of hyper-focus or do things in a way that if you get in credit card debt, you're really going to be in credit card debt. Then I would tell you, 7 baby steps is going to be your journey. You're going to want to conquer those, those control issues, those type of things, so you can work on discipline, you can work on all the things you are. But if you look at yourself and you know that your struggles as well as your talents, and you're just one of these people, maybe you go to parties, you're not one of the person that drinks one beer and you might as well have a case of beer. You're one of these people that you drink a beer and you're like, I think I'm done.
I'm good.
I'm good. Your personality is more even killed on how you approach things. I think that's a lot of people with their money, is that they see credit cards and they're like, yeah, they're all right. They're kind of convenient. I kind of like that. I get an extended warranty. I like that.
I get some cash back
or
travel
I get
rewards.
some. I go out to this shady website that I don't know that I want to use my debit card on, but I'll use a credit card, because how big they like that convenience, but they don't ever. I mean, they've never had a trouble paying off debt, because remember, millionaires do not struggle, and I can vouch for this from our financial planning practice. We don't have millionaires come to us that are struggling with credit card debt.
That's right. That's exactly
so
right.
if you are one of these personalities that you've conquered Dave's 7 baby steps, and you're wondering what's next, you don't have some of these issues with self-control, discipline, I think the Money Guy financial order of operations might be your what's next, because we're opening it up to additional flexibility, additional facets, and giving you some avenues that let you kind of optimize where you might have already been with Dave's. And I think Dave is doing a great job. He's definitely done, like I said, tremendously more good than anybody could ever take away from him, from the things that they disagree with him on. But you do need to understand that success, your long-term success, is at that intersection. What's the saying? Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. If you can understand that, you'll know that both of these plans are going to be that path towards that success. It's not luck. It's you doing these steps. And I'll bring it full circle. Live like no one else now, so you can live like no one else and give like no one else in the future.
I love it. Absolutely.
Did I do all right with that?
No, you nailed it. That was a very good Dave impression.
So here's the thing. Because Dave twangs it up like we do. I like a good Southern man. Like he
got a little more twang than us.
But
I think.
you think Dave's got more twang?
Yeah, I think he's got a little more twang than us.
We'll let our listeners in California tell us the answer on that. But here's the thing. I do think at the end of the day, we're both working off of something similar in the abundance cycle, and the fact that I love to come here, consume as much content. I want you to learn, grow, and you're going to reach a level of success that you're going to say, "What's next?"
That's right.
Also on that, and that's when hopefully you'll take the relationship to the next level. Some things we didn't put this because we were so excited for the show. Go to moneyguy.com. Give us your email address, give us your zip code, so in case we're in your neck of the woods, we can do some meetups or things like that.
I don't know if you've noticed this, guys, but we've actually been trying to do a lot more multimedia. The team here has grown. Intern Daniel, Reby Morph, they are just absolutely knocking it out of the park here. So we have slides, illustrations, deliverables, checklists, spreadsheets. If you would like some of these things, because as we put together really neat things that we think would be really valuable for you guys, we blast them out. Well, we don't put them on the website. The only way that we blast them out is via our email list. So go to moneyguy.com, give us your email, and we want to share some of these things, some of these deliverables, some of these illustrations. Go out there and we will make sure they get in your inbox so that you can use this, share it with friends, share it with family members, and continue to expand the foundational Money Guy movement of good financial decision making. That didn't come out real smooth.
Well, I think what Bo is basically saying, if you're going to go sign up at YouTube, ring the bell.
Ring the bell. That's
so
it.
Go ahead and subscribe. But thank you so much, guys. Lots of success, lots of growth. You can see we blew past 30,000. I mean, we're planning on making a big deal, but it happened over the weekend, and then we came into work, and it was already like 30,200 or 300. So we were like, well, gosh, it's kind of crazy that we can't show a picture of 30,000. So thank you. We owe it all to you guys. Tune into the live streams. We're about to now close this out, do some question and answer. If you'd like to be a part of that in the future, just tune in on Tuesdays. We'll make it happen. I'm your host, Brian Preston, Mr. Bo Hansen. Money Guy team out.